Hey everyone, welcome back to a brand new expanded stall deck. Today we're working with a kind of new concept that I have started to try, and this is Ambipom Stall. Now the first thing you're going to see is that it has this ability: if any damage is done to this Pokemon by attacks, flip a coin. If heads, prevent that damage. So what the general strategy is here is that you want to prevent damage done to it using either that ability or the Aipom with the Bustle attack. Flip a coin. If heads, during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage from and effects of attacks done to this Pokemon. It's pretty good, yeah. So essentially your opponent has a 25% chance at any point of getting an attack off. You rely on that to just kind of disrupt their board and mill them of cards using Team Rocket's Handiwork and chaining with Lusamine. And then you can obviously get rid of energy as well if you so wish. Let's get into the deck. Play 4 copies of the Aipom. You're just using Bustle, you're never using Slap. And obviously the Ambipom. Now there is actually an Ambipom deck I built using the Full Tilt Fling attack because it's not actually bad. But you're mainly here for just the ability. 90 HP is Level Ball searchable. 1 retreat is also very good. Yeah, so we'll get to that in a bit. 1 copy of Bunnelby from Primal Clash. Use this because the barrage allows you to attack twice, burrow, discard the top card of your opponent's deck, rototiller, shuffle a card from your pile into your deck. You're going to want to recover your memory capsules if your opponent gets rid of them, your memory energies, maybe recover some dolls, maybe recover some extra supporters you don't need. Versus Seeker obviously is great. And then a lot of times you're just going to be milling your opponent to win a game. And then 1 copy of Girafarig with the Get Lost. Now you absolutely need this card in the deck because you need to get rid of Pokemon Ranger from your opponent's side. A lot of people play Pokemon Ranger to deal with ADP Dragonite. You need Pokemon Ranger, and the reason you need it is because you need Girafarig to get rid of it, because Pokemon Ranger removes all effects of Pokemon in play, meaning that your Ambipom will get hit by an opponent with a Pokemon Ranger. You don't want that, right? So playing Girafarig means we get rid of that. We can also get rid of our opponent's gusting cards, opponent's recovery cards. If they were to play a more niche recovery supporter that they could get back, we'd want to get rid of that. Girafarig is a good option. This list is still pretty fluid, so if you really wanted to, you could put a copy of Shining Celebi from Shining Legends, because that would allow you to use your attack without having any of the other pieces. And I've considered it, but realistically, I just don't think you need it, especially with the prevalence of Silent Lab and Expanded. It's just not that effective in this deck. There is decks where I definitely use Celebi. This is not the one I'd use it in. 4 copies of Mars. This deck can't play Stevens because it has to attack with Bustle every turn. So I decided to play Mars. There's definitely some different supporter options you could use. You could just go full in on N and Marnie maybe. Or use like a just strict like Juniper draw. But I didn't really want to get rid of a lot of these resources, because a lot of these resources are pretty tough to do. So Mars helps disrupt the opponent's hand, get rid of pieces, and kind of just sets you up as well. There's definitely better options though. I've just put Mars. It's a personal choice. If you want to put another card, that's up to you. As you saw in my Stunfisk video, it's better in that deck because you're energy denying and milling. In this deck you are doing a bit of milling with Mars, just kind of hitting their hand, but you're not really doing much to actually disrupt their energy in play or anything, so they're going to be attacking. 3 copies of Lusamine. Put 2 in a combination of supporter and stadium cards from this card pile into your hand. Use this to loop all of your supporters in the deck, mainly Handiwork, Faba, Roseanne. Acerola is also quite good, and Cyllene is okay. Speaking of Cyllene, flip 2 coins, put a number of cards equal to the number of heads from your pile on top of your deck. This is something I'm trying out. It's obviously good in the standard control. I'm not a big fan of it, honestly. I've played this deck maybe about 10 times, and there was a game where I had Cyllene and I flipped 10 tails in a row, and I lost the huge lead I had in that game because I was just trying to like Cyllene, and I was just getting a little greedy because I wanted to progress on my opponent's board state with Crushing Hammer and Lillie's Pokédoll, and I was just flipping so many tails. And I couldn't find my Handiworks yet, so like, Cyllene's kind of a bad card, but if you get heads, it's great to reuse some of these resources that you otherwise just wouldn't be able to because you have to use Bustle. 2 copies of Gladion. Look at your face down prize cards, put 1 of them into your hand, then shuffle Gladion back in. You could put Peonia. I just prefer playing 2 Gladion because you generally you play pretty high counts of the cards you need in this deck. So unless you have like a one-of supporter prize, you're usually going to only need to pick 1 or 2 prizes out. You play 2 Gladion, never 1, so that you don't just prize Gladion. 1 copy of Acerola. Put one of your Pokemon that has any damage counters on it, and all cards attached into your hand. This is for if your opponent plays stuff like Hypnotoxic Laser and tries to get through you in that way. You know, effects that are like outside of that, like abilities, maybe Ariados's Poison Web ability for, I think it's like Poisonous Nest or something. If they use that to try to get through your Ambipom, you can pick it up with Acerola and avoid the KO, and that's what we're here to do. If I didn't mention, Bustle is a flip. We'll get back to that later. 2 copies of N. Each player shuffles his or her hand in his or her deck. Then each player draws a card for each of your prizes. I like N, but a lot of times you're denying prizes in this deck, so your opponent's going to get a decent-sized hand off of it, which is like doesn't feel great. So use it in the late game. You don't really want to set up with N though. 1 copy of Roseanne's backup. Choose 1 or more. Shuffle a Pokemon, shuffle a tool, shuffle a stadium, or shuffle an energy from your discard pile into your deck. Use it to skip back these energies. Use it to skip back the tools. Oh, I misplaced stadium. Life Dew and Memory Capsule are good tools to get back. Getting back Pokemon, you obviously want to maintain these Pokemon, and you don't have Rescue Stretcher in this deck. You just have Rescue Carrier, which does work, but getting back Pokemon can always be nice. And getting back a supporter card. A lot of times you aren't going to, but if you have an extra of these cards in your discard pile, like if you have like, let's just say you have 2 Cyllene in discard, you can put 1 back and just only save 1 to be Lusamine. You only need 1 of a card in your discard pile to be Lusamine, because you Lusamine for Lusamine and that 1 card. So you can definitely put 1 back into deck, and that works just fine. 1 copy of Faba. You want to use this to get rid of your opponent's checks to this. There's a lot of like different tool cards and energy cards that would let your opponent go through cards like this, so you want to get rid of anything like that. You can also just energy deny with it, which is never bad. Getting rid of things like Double Dragon Energy or Prism Energies or, you know, Meloetta's energies, because Meloetta actually does hit through this ability, so I'm pretty sure it does. I might be wrong about that. No, it hits through the Stun Fist. It might hit through his ability, it might not, I forget. Either way, getting rid of Fusion Strike Energy is good, and playing Faba just guarantees you win that matchup, so that's kind of cute. 2 copies of Handiwork, use this for milling. When Lost Origin comes out in a couple weeks, just throw in an extra copy of Misfortune Sisters, because that is going to be way better. You still want Handiwork, so you can just raw mill, but Misfortune Sisters is going to be a lot more live in the early turns of the game. 2 copies of Quick Ball and 4 copies of Level Ball to search. Quick Ball, discard a card from your hand, search for a basic. And Level Ball, search for any Pokemon with 9 HP. Level Ball is universal in this deck. So you get anything. Quick Ball is for all of the guys that are not Ambipom. So you could consider putting a Jirachi in here if you want to search out with these to get a supporter card. That could be doable. I'd probably want to put Scoop Up Net in the deck then, so I don't give up 2 prizes. Personally, up to you though. 4 copies of Lillie's Pokédoll. Use this to stall and to make sure you do not deck out. So you play this card as if it were a 30 HP basic. If this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, you may discard all cards from it and put it on the bottom of your deck. So you do have N to just Lusamine Loop, and you can just Lusamine Loop and never deck out that way. But it's a lot easier just to retreat into a doll and put it back. In a lot of cases, you just put 2 energy on an Ambipom, retreat 1, and then doll. And then your deck is back to just 1 card. So you don't want to end up in that scenario too often, but if you do, you can just prevent yourself from decking out and keep your Lusamines and stuff in hand, which you'd rather prefer. 2 copies of Crushing Hammer. It's not a great count, but you really only need 2. I used to have 3, but I wanted to put Life Dew in here. Crushing Hammer allows you to just take an energy off the board. If you loop these enough with things like Cyllene, then you can actually start to make progress on important targets. Sometimes your opponent can have 1 or 2 Pokemon that can hit through this effect, and if you just use Faba and Crushing Hammer to make sure that Pokemon's not going to become a problem, then that's pretty good. You could also consider Lugia GX in this deck for its I believe it's Lost Purge GX Tack, which just removes a Pokemon from the game entirely. It does take 3 colorless energy though, so you'd probably want to tech in a DCE if you also did that, and starting it's pretty bad. But you could also use that to get rid of 1 problematic Pokemon that your opponent has, and all cards attached, obviously. 1 copy of Field Blower. You want to get rid of Chaotic Swell mainly. There's some tools that can be problematic. Chaotic Swell's a big one though, because you want to use your stadium. So 2 copies of Rescue Carrier, put up to 2 Pokemon with 9 HP or less from your discard pile into your hand. you get back these guys. Literally anything in the deck is recoverable with it. It's great. 4 copies of Versus Seeker. Put a supporter card from this battle into your hand. Yeah, you wouldn't play any less than 4 unless you're really worried about item lock. I just don't think you match up well against item lock in general, but you can still win it just by stalling and Lusamine milling. 3 copies of Memory Capsule. If this card's attached to a Pokemon, you can use the attacks from its previous evolution. Use this to use Bustle. That's it. Life Dew. If the Pokemon this card's attached to is knocked out, you give 1 less prize. When you have to use these guys, you want to give up 1 less prize doing it, so you can throw them up and give up a prize less. Roseanne means you can also loop it. You don't want to put it on Ambipom because obviously Ambipom is using Memory Capsule, but it's an option. If you do have a Memory Energy on, you could potentially do that, but you also then put yourself into a play where your Memory Energy could get Faba and you wouldn't be able to bustle anymore. 3 copies of Glimwood Tangle. Once during each player's turn, after that player flips any coins for an attack, they may ignore all results of the coins and begin flipping coins again. So you use this for Bustle to try to guarantee you get a heads Bustle. Like I said, the Victini is also an option in here you could play just to reflip Bustle, and I don't think that'd be bad either, but you just really don't need it. I don't think Glimwood Tangle does the job generally. You just have Lusamine to loop it already, and then you have Field Blower and Faba to guarantee that Chaotic Swell is not going to be a problem, so Glimwood Tangle's worked well. 1 copy of Basic Fire. Use this for any decks that might try to lock your special energy out of play. Then you have an energy out that you can use. You can shuffle it back with Roseanne if it gets a discard pile, or Cyllene, obviously. Cyllene can recover any card. So you just want to have an energy out against decks that would lock your special energies out of play. 2 copies of Recycle Energy allows you to use these 2 very flexibly. Also allows you to just bustle if you have a Memory Capsule attached. You're just using Recycle Energy to bustle. That works. 2 copies is pretty fair. 3 copies of Memory Energy. It provides colorless, but then it allows you to use the attacks of your previous evolutions. So Ambipom can use the Bustle attack. So literally with this deck, all you do is just Bustle every single turn. You just Lusamine and Bustle every single turn until the game's over. Not the most thrilling deck. There's simply some inclusions. Maybe like a Flare Grunt in here could be cool. There's obviously the basic techs I listed. Maybe a Jirachi EX. Maybe a Victini from Guardians Rising, maybe a Shining Celebi in here. There's a lot of different techs you could add. I think the list is cool. Mars is obviously interchangeable. It's just a personal preference thing. It's a lot of fun to play if you just love playing really long games of Pokemon that have a lot of luck in them. Because obviously if you just flip a bunch of tails on Bustle, you can kind of get screwed, but generally you're going to flip a lot of heads. So anyway, thank you all for watching. If you appreciate this video, check out some of my other deck profiles I do on the channel, and stay tuned for another deck profile soon.